good evening, good afternoon, hello Instagram, and hello Chris.
Yep.
Evening, you alright? You chatty tonight?
Yep.
Yeah, you good? Everyone had a good day? How you doing? How you doing out there? Have you had a good day? Did you get... Oh, hello Liz. Thank you for your lovely message, by the way. I did just share it with Chris. That Liz is enjoying our Wednesday evening sessions. She's ready for us tonight. Ready for the nuggets of truth. Yeah. Oh, and Denise as well. Hello. I've just seen your wonderful lady doing the plank, and I thought I so want to give that a go. It's on my list of things to go and try. Denise's aerial yoga. Maybe on a day when I'm not too tired though, because I find I lack coordination on tired days. So, good evening. I've been doing that all day.
Nice.
Get that from you.
I find it quite
you do that.
Passive aggressive.
But you do that all the time.
It's because my hands are cold. It's because my hands are cold.
Right.
And it's my train of thought. I have these little cues.
Oh, look.
I have these cues to start the next sentence.
Right, well, let's start the next sentence, shall we? Liz's knees are ready for our nuggets of joy. So we're talking tonight about... my arms off camera. We're talking tonight about how to not get frail. We have spoken about knees. We've spoken about dodgy knees. We've spoken about training, how to train as you age. We had a great chat with the lovely Jacqueline Hooton of her garden gym, all about that. But tonight we're getting a little bit more into nitty-gritty of really what those triggering points are as we age that create frailty. And if you have older relatives, you will know, or have watched your older relatives, you will know what I mean by seeing that slow decline. I see it at the moment. I'm seeing it quite obviously, not right here in front of my eyes, but obviously at a social distance. Falls or an illness or a stay in hospital or a period of weight loss, maybe relatives that don't want to eat because they feel anxious, and all of these things coupled with a lack of activity can worsen things like sarcopenia, which is what we mentioned last time. Sarcopenia is when you lose muscle. So leading on to the other point of this talk, which is really there are some things that we feel are inevitable as we age, but actually exercise can reverse them. So one of those is sarcopenia in terms of muscle loss. So you do not have to lose muscle as you age. You just have to work harder to keep it and get it. The same is true for your brain. Your brain atrophies as you age. Now, Alzheimer's and dementia are still the biggest killers. I think it's 11%. Oh, hi Tracy. It's the biggest killer. Even I was checking the stats, and COVID didn't even come into the top 10 last year.
It's the number one killer. It's the number one killer.
Yeah.
It's
not saying that you can necessarily avoid it. Some people will be more predisposed, but brain atrophy, a loss of cognitive function, is closely linked with muscle density and power and strength in your legs. And it's something I wrote an article for the Guardian. About.
Did you?
About this a good few years ago, which I'll pop up actually. I'll pop up in the stories if you haven't read. What are you, suddenly a Telegraph reader?
I don't know. I don't read any of them.
No, okay. Yeah, I did. I was quite proud of that article. It's a good article. It's a good article. So I'll make sure I share it here. But that explained how the scientific evidence between power and strength in your thighs and how that was connected and related to brain atrophy. And then just general frailty, hips. So we're not so much talking tonight about arthritis. And there's a different topic is kind of aging well, as in not. It's all related, but we're not really going to go so much into age-related conditions, but more about things that you can do to and how to train as you age, so you don't end up that kind of stooped over osteoporosis. That's the other one, osteoporosis, and just being that frail person. What can you do about it?
I think we're going to break it down at the start, really, and hone in on what exactly we're talking about, because people will be in different camps here. Some people will be in this camp where they think, this is me, I've noticed a decline over the last 5-10 years and I want to do something about it. There'll be some who are completely oblivious to this, 20s and 30s and 40s, who think, I always say you're rolling the dice. Rolling the dice of chance, you're getting away with it. There'll be some who will be concerned about their loved ones, so their parents or aunts and uncles. So all depends on which angle we're looking at this. So let's look at this first of all from personal experience. I'm talking about your phone keeps doing that.
I know, it's really annoying.
I'm looking at my parents. I won't tell you which one, but people know me, they know which one it is. And when this parent was younger, they were a very physically active person, but they were getting away with it. Rolling the dice of chance and luck, and they were not putting the effort and time into their later years by eating better and moving in the right way. They're now suffering for that, and they look so much older than my other parent does, and they keep saying to me, well, I'm getting old, and it's not. No, you've just got frail. That's a separate matter altogether. Age is more time rather than the process of aging. There are things that do happen to us with the process of aging, but this particular person is frail because they have not invested in their body and their nutrition, which we'll talk about later, earlier in their life, and there's been a slow decline and a slow sarcopenia, so loss of muscle mass over years. But here's a biggie. We just think that if we don't eat, that it's calories. Calories are the only thing we're concerned about. It's actually not. When you don't eat or eat properly, you're losing nutrients, fats which help to stimulate hormones, and fats which help to line the cells for nerves to work, the sheath for nerves to work. All these come from your diet. Your diet helps to facilitate these, and if you don't stay on top of these things, over time, you have a slow, gradual decline to these things. And I'm seeing this in this one particular parent.
The other thing, just on that note, actually, in terms of what you're ingesting, your cell health as we age, something we haven't mentioned, but it's a little bit more cellular for us, but worth mentioning. So your cells replicate, the DNA replicates the cells as you age. We're not the same person as we were 7 or 10 years ago. And obviously what you put into your body and how you look after your body will have an impact on how your cells replicate, and stress as well, stress and free radicals. Anyway, as you were.
So that's the thing. So we're going to look at this at that angle. Parent or someone who is become very frail. So you picture that person in your mind now, and just think other things that they could have done back maybe 20, 30 years ago to prevent this. Absolutely.
Particularly if you share some DNA, yeah? So
yeah.
Particularly if you've got some stuff that you think you might have, it might happen to you, maybe you're concerned about it. So it's where I think we're all aware of things that have happened to our parents, be they with us still or not, and it concerns us, doesn't it?
It doesn't concern me about this particular person, to be honest, because I know what they've done, and I ain't gonna make that mistake because the other parent hasn't, and they always call me up to badger me about the fact that this other parent, I get the weekly ear bashing, how they neglected their body when they were younger. So I'm using myself and my family as an example to use for this topic, so you can see how we then dig ourselves out of the hole that we've created for ourselves. So without further ado, what could this person have done when they were younger? Number one, nutrition was the biggie. This particular individual used to just not eat, and when actually I won't tell you that, I'll tell you who it is, but when I was younger, it was well known this person just
Should we just call him person X?
Person X.
Person X.
So we'll call this person X. Didn't eat, didn't recover after their training sessions and playing sports, and would often just say, I'm too busy to eat. Used to have painkillers all the time and would never rest properly. And you're getting away with it, absolutely getting away with it. But because this person was in great physical shape from the outside, the inside tells you a different picture. So they've now lost all that physique and the shape, and they're stooping over, they've got injuries, they've got pain. They had falls, and when they mentioned they were having falls, the first thing sprung to mind was, frailty, sarcopenia, balance. And they had a bad fall where they fell, bashed their head on a work surface, bashed the back of the head in the bathroom, and they thought it was quite funny. I didn't think it was funny at all. It's actually very, very serious. Because when they're having falls, each subsequent fall will be worse than the last one. because something's happening in their body, possibly their inner ear and their balance is changing. So they could have worked on their nutrition. This runs contrary to the diet industry, right? So this is the problem which we've always had with Fit School, with the diet industry and healthy nutrition. Yes, calorie control is important. However, we've said in our book many times through, haven't we?
I should have a copy of it right
is
there.
that the first thing you do is you upgrade your diet.
Yeah, and the first week of our book's in 6 weeks. On the first week, and I know Liz, you've been through this program with us. The first week is nothing to do with calorie cutting.
No.
It's all about sorting out your nutritional basics.
Yeah.
Because if you haven't got that right, then you're off. You're going to be hungry, but also you're going to be starving yourself in a way that just isn't healthy. And that's why we do that.
Yeah.
Because actually, generally, if you start to think about what you're eating in that first week anyway, your motivation is quite high. But yeah, really important fats and proteins and amino acids and all of those things.
So that's the first thing with diet. Then we can get into the specifics of the diet. We call these our macros, and macronutrients are your proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, as Karen mentioned a second ago. Now, carbohydrates have been demonized all the time. Carbs make you fat. Fat makes you fat. Fat gives you cholesterol. Some of that is true. A lot of it isn't. It all depends on the person and individual. However, again, as we mentioned in the book, not trying to plug, but mentioned in the book, it's important that you know that carbohydrates and proteins are essential for your diet. You can't really survive without carbohydrates in... You can to a certain degree, but let's talk about ketosis another time. But carbohydrates, proteins and fats...
Complicated.
If you take those out of your diet, my concern is what those are primarily helping you to do, what their primary function is. I mentioned earlier about hormonal control, nerve control, muscle damage and repair.
Sleep as well.
Sleep as well. So you're taking these out, and I'm thinking, well, when are you going to put them back in? And people often don't because they're so concerned about the calories.
Particularly with issues with blood pressure now, hey? And so people get told to go on a low cholesterol diet.
Yeah.
And so automatically you're going to cut out a lot of, and then also at the moment as well, the push towards more plant-based, which is, totally get it in terms of impact on the environment, but you have to think about amino acids and you have to think about how you're nourishing your body.
Fats,
and your fats. And just... we're talking a little bit long term, and I know that can sometimes feel a bit, yawn, this is like 20 years from now. But actually think about the immediate term, sleep. If you don't have enough protein and essential fats in your diet, then your serotonin, melatonin, they're the happy and the sad hormones and the sleep hormones. You just don't, your brain doesn't synthesize enough and you don't sleep well, and that affects your mood and that affects your sleep pattern. So something to consider, particularly if you are approaching or post-menopausal, when those sleep cycles can be more disrupted. How much protein are you getting, and particularly how much protein are you getting in the morning? So yes, cut calories if you want to lose weight, but make sure your nutritional building blocks are there. And things, unfortunately, like old school it's rebranded since old school points or kind of calorie counting programs. I won't mention them by name.
They've got better.
They have got better, but there was a lot of nutrition stripped out. I tried it once myself, just kind of for, practicing what I preach, and I just had no energy to exercise. I just had so little nutrients, so few nutrients, in my body, so few calories. I just couldn't exercise. I felt weak. It was horrible. I went into ketosis. Like I could, taste it. Anyway, moving on. We're talking about training, but nutrition is really important.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the macros, the proteins and the fats. Quick anecdote. Again, another parent, they were told to reduce their cholesterol, so reduce their fat to cut their cholesterol, and they'll put on anti-cholesterol or cholesterol-lowering medication. They had to come off that, and the doctor then said, it appears that you can operate on a slightly higher level of cholesterol because they had nerve damage from the lack of fat in their diet and the effect of the medication on their existing fat. It's not really pointless. It's not. On their existing fat reserves in their body. To the point where they had shakes and tremors in their hands, and that was like that's like a baby learning how to move when the sheath has not had, it's got the insulation is not around that, and therefore the movements aren't as smooth as they are as they get older. And that's
something
what happened.
you'll notice if you're training, doing a new exercise for the first time. You get the little kind of shakes, and that's the sort of something that you might be able to relate to. You get the kind of slightly jittery jelly legs when something is new, similar. It's new neural pathways.
Yeah. So they went off the medication. Again, not saying that we should do this, but this was anecdote. Off the medication, up the fat levels back up, tremors stopped immediately. So that's where you need to work in hand or in concert with the medical professional to know what is right for you, and not just take it on board by taking something out of your diet is going to benefit you now or in the future. So that's nutrition. Exercise. So we talked about sarcopenia and muscle loss. Now, sarcopenia, it just means a gradual loss of muscle mass over time. And this happens, it doesn't happen when you get to 40, 50, 60 or 70. It's a slow decline. And one of the first signs of this is a loss of strength. And I've always said, again, I've banged on about this, that the last thing you want to do is lose strength in anything. You may have seen lots of studies come out over the years where they related grip strength to heart health and longevity. And they said there was a correlation between grip strength and your overall health. And actually, I think this is more closely related to sarcopenia rather than it being a translation from one to the next. Because if your grip strength is quite strong, or your grip is quite strong, there's a good chance that you use your hands for something, and therefore you're using your muscle mass, and therefore more muscle mass, more bone density, and then you get all the reciprocal benefits from that. So it's important to do something where you're actively trying to keep yourself strong or get stronger in the process. And hence why we always say, if somebody says, oh, my left arm is weak or my right arm is weak, we often encourage them to use that more and get stronger. We don't say avoid that. It's really important, because if you say something is weak, I'm thinking, is that new? Or is this the start of something else that's happening? Yeah. So that's the next thing. So looking at strength.
Denise is good, because Denise is she does her aerial yoga. She's using her hands a lot, and the lovely dog as well on the lead.
Anything that helps with strength.
And actually, one indicator that your grip strength is going, and this happened to me after I had the children, was Chris getting really annoyed that I wasn't really doing lids up very well on stuff, and it was just I really lost a lot of grip strength. Yeah,
it was. It wasn't that. I mean, you used to say that it was because they don't need to be so tight, and that's one of your parents' example, where they use all the time to sort of
Let's call them an aunt and uncle, shall we? Or a cousin.
To divert and deflect, they'll say, "Oh, it's a stupid bottle
Blame
problem."
someone else.
But I thought that's a pattern. That's a pattern happening. Why is that happening? Because you hadn't done as much weight training.
Denise is saying the grip strength is really important for aerial yoga. Totally.
Correct. I like the idea of life or death as well. The risk element.
You need to sell that. It's a good selling point. Yeah. So grip strength, and also in terms of when you periods in your life, I mentioned earlier that you might lose muscle quite quickly. A period of hospitalisation. You're sitting down, you're ill, you're in bed a lot, you're not eating very much because the hospital food is and like non-existent. But also childbirth, pregnancy. I mentioned it in previous talks, but unless you are super, super diligent and have a professional trainer, you're going to lose condition when you're pregnant. And then you spend that kind of 6 weeks, 3 months sitting on your backside feeding a child. You're going to lose a lot of strength and condition. So that's a key. And quite often, particularly now, I had Naomi when I was 38, so I was a bit older, but this isn't something that improves with age. So the older you are when you have your first child, or you have those periods of inactivity, it doesn't have to be a child, the more of a problem this is. And then what happens once people have babies and they're worried about the baby weight and the fat? What do?
Calories.
Cut the calories.
Gone.
Out the window. Don't replenish those muscle stores. I don't do anything about it. And then you also have a slight side note here, but I have women that come to me who've sort of got away with not really having to do much exercise in their younger years because they've been naturally slim. They put on the weight with the baby because that's what your body does, because it clings onto weight, because it's really important. The fat is important. I'm saying this to my pregnant ladies all the time. It's there for a reason. Your body likes it to ensure your baby for the future. But then suddenly pelvic floor issues because never done any exercise, too much feelings that they're carrying too much fat, even if it's not necessarily the case, and again periods of it just sort of highlights the fact that there's not enough muscle there to in fact, again, I'm shifting from one point to the other, but again, when I see women post baby with pelvic floor issues, and it's all very specific, pelvic floor, can I come to see you? One of the most successful transformations I see, if someone comes to see me privately, I give them a basic strength and conditioning program for legs, along with some breath work and pelvic floor work. So legs, bottom, tummy, trunk, inner thighs, pelvic floor. I never do one without the other. If they do that, and it literally, I'm talking 15 minutes a day or every other day, 2 to 4 weeks later, the transformation is amazing, because that is so important for pelvic floor, because where they've lost that muscle, there's now less to support. I'm squeezing now. No one is listening to this and not squeezing the pelvic floor. It's support. It's a support structure. And I think that's a really good example, actually, of how muscles support your joints and your organs and all the other systems that are going on. So that's why it's not about wanting to look buff in the gym.
If they want to. I mean, if that's a motivator.
No, if that's a motivator. What I'm saying is that not all training is about looking a certain way.
No, because as I mentioned earlier, how you look on the outside is not a reflection of how you operate on the inside.
No, unless you see a women's health physiotherapist, in which case they'll have a really good look at it. Anyway, moving on, muscles.
So you're looking at the sarcopenia we talked about, and you need to be working on strength of some sort, and you can do this at home. So, for example, just try opening and closing lids with your weaker hand. Or I like to do is use your weaker hand to try and turn the saucepan or drain the vegetables.
I'm not going to do that.
No,
drain all the roast potatoes with the weaker hand. I can't even do it with my strong hand.
Just practice, so you know that we're not making it up, and that you'll feel that the more you use that weaker side, the more it gets used to it, and the better that grip or the more that grip will improve. And then also you'll start to target your forearm as well, which possibly will be getting weaker through time. So just try those, for example. Next, so that's muscle. I don't want to get too much into that. But what's important, which links this to the last topic on nutrition, is you cannot grow muscle in a calorie deficit. It's not possible. You've got what's called body recomposition, which can happen in a couple of weeks window, where your fat is burnt off through calories, and then you can use those calories to build muscle in a short period of time. That's for mainly bodybuilders. For most people, you cannot build lean tissue in a calorie deficit. And also, when you lose weight, you will always lose fat and muscle. It's very difficult to lose just body fat. It will be fat and muscle. So to put on weight, you'll put on fat and muscle. To lose weight, you'll lose fat and muscle. So that's why it's important to know what's going on and then what is coming off. Some kind of body composition measurer.
You'll be able to do that again soon
zapper,
in
got
person. He's got a fat wand, which way you wave, don't you? You wiggle at people, and you get a very accurate body composition.
So
it's delightful.
So if you're serious about keeping an eye on this, I would say most people need to have an eye on what their body fat and body fat percentages and their fat-free mass, which is everything else outside of body fat. It's a crude measure because it doesn't take into consideration water, ligaments, tendons, but it'll tell you what your fat-free mass weight is.
And as you age, it's really important to keep an eye in terms of how your muscle mass,
that's it,
because and the percentage of your body that is muscle.
Yeah.
And actually, the scanner can also it can indicate health conditions, can't it, as well, going forward?
No, not really.
Did it not?
No.
Oh, I was thinking about something else then, sorry.
No,
It's a complete fail.
So that's muscle mass. But then finally, before we move into the next topic, is protein. Right, so you need to have adequate amounts of protein. As we get older, what does happen is our body's ability to be able to synthesize.
Slow down.
Our body's ability to be able to.
Yes,
Our body's ability to be able to process and absorb protein decreases. So you need to have more protein than you did when you were 20, in your 30s and your 40s. So, for example, 20 grams of protein could be, or 25 grams of protein could be a fist portion of protein. So chicken breast, for example. You're looking at more than that if you are on a serious muscle building program. And muscle building doesn't mean you're going to turn into a bodybuilder overnight. That doesn't happen like that. You've got to work really hard to even put on a kilo of muscle mass in, I'd say, 3 to 6 months for most people. At the start you put on more, but eventually a kilo would be difficult from 3 to 6 months, and then a kilo over a year, my goodness me, that gets even harder the older you get. But you can start. But what's important is, if you do your weight training or your resistance training or strength training, that you have a surplus of calories, you're having adequate amounts of protein as well in that particular meal. So meal after your workout, just make sure you have a bit more protein and you'll be good to go.
So in a nutshell, and sort of summarise what we've said so far, even though we're talking about training, what you consume is really important. So making sure you're not drastically cutting calories, making sure you keep up your essential fats and your protein intake, more so if you are postmenopausal, and then also making sure you're doing some strength and impact work to help retain that muscle, but also that muscle is then supporting your joints. And no, completely. And we'll move on to vegetarians in just a second, Denise. But then also, as Chris was saying, your nervous system. And if you're thinking about your risk of falls as you get older, keeping your nervous system strong and keeping that muscle mass to support your joints, and also keeping the your muscle mass and your cognitive function, they all interrelate. We just can't separate one from the other.
No.
Vegetarians.
Tricky one. A good vegetarian diet.
Here's what I found.
Oh, look, my watch has
Oh,
just
look
told
at
me.
that, there we
Thanks,
go.
look at that happy watch.
So just ask the watch and we can step back. So a good vegetarian diet is as good as a good, healthy, meat-based diet. But that's someone who's very focused, very committed, and very disciplined. The problem is there's no such thing as a very focused, disciplined person who eats 100% on track, no matter whether you're meat or plant-based. Ain't gonna happen when you have a busy life, other work commitments. And the problem is that you've got less of a window or less negotiating.
Yes, less wiggle room.
Wiggle room when you've eliminated a food group. So all I've got to say to that is you need to be very, very strategic with your protein intake, to the point where you're actually writing it down and seeing where it's coming from, and maybe start to use MyFitnessPal and put it in and just see where you're getting it from.
Would you consider protein shakes?
I would. Yeah. I take a vegan protein shake anyway. It's vegan because I don't have dairy, because I can't cope with dairy. And I have that because I just now haven't got the time of the day to eat the amount of calories I need to eat and the amount of protein I need to eat in the day. I just can't do that and be as active. I'm not as active as I used to be, and I wasn't eating as much then as I need to, but now I'm close to that
You're
point.
talking about your life of tuna and brown rice?
Yeah, well, I used to have a lot of tuna, a lot of brown rice, and it kept me going. But now I'm less active. I don't need as many calories. However, I do feel that I need a shake of some sort. And I remember a client years ago said to me, I don't believe in these shakes. But again, you don't need a shake if you're eating adequate amounts of protein. It's a solution if you're not eating enough protein. I don't eat enough protein. I can't get enough in. It's there in a shake to have in a 40-gram hit in the morning. Fantastic. And that's one hit done. If I can get 3 to 4 of those hits a day on an active workout, and then three hits of protein on a non-active day, I've hit my weekly targets.
And we're talking, 60 to 90 grams of protein per day for someone in their 50s?
Well, I would say start off with, you're looking at 1.1 to 1.3 grams. To 1.3 grams per kilogram. I say roughly it's 1 kilo. So you weigh 70 kilos, say 75, 80 grams of protein per day. Minimum 65, 70. If you're active, I would say you want to up that towards 90 to 100. And then if you are very active, then you're looking at plus 100. I've got some very active older clients, and they're upwards of 150 to 180 because they're very muscular now, but that's where they're at with that. Most people don't eat nowhere near enough protein. You can build muscle with plant-based protein or meat-based protein or animal-based protein. It doesn't make a difference. You'll get the amount of amino acids you need. However, it's the quantity. You need to eat more plant-based than a sort of an animal-based product. So that's where you've got to figure out what fits into your particular I guess, area of concern. Whether,
I should say also, personal trainers can't advise on nutrition. They can just sort of talk about healthy diets. But Chris is a sports nutritionist, so you can advise on this. So, and if you do want a what do you call it? Yeah, a consultation with Chris. You know, we're here.
Yeah, we can do that, or we can refer out if you need more specific work with that. So that's looking at protein. So protein hits if you are taking.
Just try writing it down this week. Everyone who's watching this, write down your protein intake during the week.
If you're taking a food group out, so meat-based products or animal-based products, then just see if you're getting the same nutrients with MyFitnessPal. It's a free account. You don't have to pay any money. And it will give you your protein, and that will be a good starting point. And all you do is over time you try and track it and increase that ever so slightly per meal.
And also thinking about short-term gains, track your protein, see how it affects your sleep and your mood and your satiety levels. So you know, how hungry are you in the mid-afternoon if you have had protein in the morning, and if you haven't. And I tend to find, I get out of the habit as well, I'm, you know, not golden girl here, but if I have some protein in the morning, I invariably sleep better and less hungry in the afternoon, and am less ratty with the children.
Yeah, so it's all rule winner for that one. So next, moving on to balance. So I mentioned earlier a parent of mine that fell over, and third fall in, I'm thinking something's changed now. What we got to look at here is not just balance, but also it's called the vestibular ocular Hang on a second.
Go on.
Where is it?
What is it? If you can type
vestibulo ocular reflex.
Oh.
VOR. Vestibulo ocular reflex. There we go.
That's something to do with brains and eyes.
Brains and eyes. So what it is that if I move to the right, my eye stays still, and my brain is saying to me, even though your head's moved, that's staying in the same spot.
That's the little test you can do. Hey, everyone do this. Can I do the little test? Right? Okay, right, everyone together. So you need to, if you don't like bony parts, then look away now. So
you need 4 ball
get
legs,
your
Gracie.
fingers. You're gonna get your fingers into. Can you see where your skull is at the back, and there's like a little dip in the middle of it. So I want you to just gently press your fingers into that. Not too hard, because I don't want you to push your brains out. And we're just here. Now, look at me. Okay, you're all doing it. You can't type now because you're all doing it. And then you need to sort of feel, and then don't turn your head, but look. And then come back. And then look the other way. And what you can feel, if you're feeling really, subtly, can you feel something move under your fingers? That is your body getting ready to move the direction that your eyes have gone.
Correct.
Before you have moved. So
Correct.
That's how clever your spine is. So this is why if you have a fall, or if you have a car accident, or something moves you in the wrong direction, and your spine wasn't prepared for it, that's where injuries happen. Because this is something we do in Pilates. We're preparing your core. I don't like that word, but we're preparing all the little muscles around your spine, shall we call them, for that kind of thing.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
So we're just making them
Milking
better and more efficient. I'm not milking a cow.
No.
Did you feel that? Did you feel the thing?
Yeah.
Some people hate it. People that don't like touching their bones in my classes are like, that's gross. Well, I love that.
Their own bones?
Yeah, some people really hate it.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
How do you sleep at night?
Well, okay, they don't touch their bones.
Oh, okay. So the vestibulo ocular reflex.
But my way was much better, wasn't
it? I know. And think about it. 2 things. One is car sickness for kids, but adults too. A mini ripple.
Yeah,
Yes,
look at that.
Car sickness. So what this system does is it helps to stabilize you. It's a stabilizer. As your head moves around, it keeps the target still. But once you move around, and not only when you're moving around, trying to stay fixed on a point.
If you get on a swing as a grown-up, you'll know this.
So when it stays fixed on a point and you move around and the target is still moving, that's one sign that this is getting worse. But also, when you finish moving your head, that the object is moving again, that's a sign that it's getting worse. Another one is if you're looking at words on a piece of paper and the words start jumping around.
Oh, I've got dodgy eyeballs. Mine have always done that.
Yes, but that's one sign as well. But do you also get car sick?
No.
What about swings?
Since I've had children.
Oh,
yeah.
There you go.
Look at that.
Yeah.
And I've got older.
And so this is one of the reasons why as we get older, this can get worse and can contribute to falls. So if you think about it, if you're moving around and your eyes can't stay fixed on a point, but when your head moves, your brain can't figure out where straight is and where maybe the step ends and starts, the brain can't communicate with the foot, and then you've fallen over. It's almost like falling over with your eyes closed. And that's why falls can be a lot worse.
So can you train the vestibulo
Correct.
ocular reflex? I want you all to get that into conversation this week.
Vestibulo, what's that word? Vestibulo? Ocular reflex. Scrabble. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Lots of hyphenated together. Yes, you can train it. So with, for example, one of our kids, they have car sickness, and I was told by a specialist, you can train this in as little as 2 weeks by exposing them to the thing which they are having problems with. And it was being in a car. So we got them in a car, and he gave me a whole list of things to do, put them in the car, get them to look down at a screen, all the things you're told you shouldn't do if you have car sickness. This is what you would avoid if you have got to the point where you can't train it any further. But he said you get good results with kids because this become fixed as adults if they don't train it early on. He then said you can still have improvements as you get older by working on balance as well. Balance where you're moving. Yeah, you're moving your head and moving to a fixed point and trying to see if by the time you get to that point, you stop feeling that your head is spinning, and also challenging that system. But he said the final thing, which was interesting, was he said people who take anti-car sickness or travel sickness medication, what it actually does is that slows your brain down.
Oh, I quite fancy some of that.
It slows your brain down. So that when you move, your brain isn't thinking, where's left, where's right, where's centre. It's much slower. And he said, this is a detrimental effect on falls because it slows you down.
Yeah.
So he said he would prescribe those at the last thing you would do, but you need to be working on balance and training that system in general.
One of the things that we do in my class, my Wednesday, Wake Up Wednesdays class, well done Liz, you did that last week, I loved your message. We throw balls around. Just small balls, or we throw cushions in the air and we run after them, and it seems all a bit silly, but actually we're training the vestibulo ocular.
There you go.
So yeah, we do that. But anything like that,
not say that in your class.
Badminton.
Say, class, it's time for vestibulo ocular.
So tennis, anything when you're running around after balls. That's what you need to do.
This is the thing. This is what I don't separate rant. I just wish we could have let older people go out and play tennis, and we stayed at home over last year.
Yeah.
My concern now is that over lockdown, a lot of people who needed to get out and move haven't moved. And
if you were Prime Minister, you'd have just made everyone over 70 go and play tennis, whether they liked it or not.
Yeah, and everyone else stays at
My
home.
decree is...
And everyone else stays at home.
Everyone just goes and plays tennis.
No, I know. But
just tennis, nothing else.
But it is important now. That's why I absolutely love when you see.
Yeah, it's really important that now... older relatives are getting out, or friends. It doesn't have to be a relative. You can have older friends as well. Talk about relatives. Need to get out and do some training of the vestibulo ocular reflex.
Correct.
Very important. I think we've stressed that point quite a lot, haven't we?
It is, but balance is important.
Balance.
Yeah.
Reflexes, muscles, protein, fats.
But also with the vestibulo ocular reflex, it is actually down to muscular control.
We're done with that now.
But it's muscular control, which
know.
links into the training earlier, that you can actually train a muscle. And it also links into diet because it links to fat and proteins and how the muscle actually functions. So please do not strip things out of your diet without knowing what you're doing to that.
Because you might get dodgy eyeballs.
Its muscles get weaker when they get smaller. That's the main thing. So yes, they're the biggies. We've covered the bigger topics. So the balance, walking downstairs, the balance, muscle building, it's nutrition as well, it's sleep and recovery, and all these things, just to wrap up, that all these things contribute to keeping you in good health the older you get, and to not get frail. We accept getting frail as a symptom of getting older, and it's not. It's a sign that you're not looking after yourself. And by frail, I mean the version of yourself compared to what you were maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. And if you look drastically different, whether it's posture, so posture obviously coming doing Pilates or yoga sessions.
Pilates isn't just about posture.
No, but it's a form of exercise that helps,
okay,
yes.
Okay.
Or a kind of resistance training for your muscles,
ballet. You could do
or dance, walking, all
dancing,
these things.
very good for your vestibulo ocular reflex.
All these things, I'm always happy that people are doing, no matter what age they start. And so, if you have an older relative and you're thinking, or friend who, well, the example was the parent, wasn't it?
Okay, yeah.
Who you think, I want to get them to do something now, today, tomorrow. Just get them to do something that's fun, whether it's
cricket,
a dance class, cricket, bowls, going out rambling and walking, anything like that. If you're a person now who thinks doesn't apply to me, it will. You roll the dice. You roll the dice of chance and
walk in the forest, uneven floor. Reflexes.
Yeah, but what you can do now, if you really can't be bothered to do anything about it now, is just do something that you enjoy as well. It could just be brisk walking, get on your mountain bike. You could just
tighten up jars.
But just make sure that you are not stripping nutrients out of your diet because you think that this is what society is telling us. We should be just eating less of everything. Less of the bad stuff, but you need to make sure your diet is upgraded so you're getting enough nutrients in the first place.
Our book is available on Amazon, by the way. It's $7.99.
Oh, is it?
And it is. The Fat Loss Toolkit.
Okay.
Well, we need to go now because we need to get Isaac to tennis.
Yes, so in summary, hopefully I haven't revealed which parent of mine, because I am concerned, but part of me thinks it's down to them now. You can't force someone to do something they want to do.
We learn that very hard with our parents, don't we?
But what I hope people can understand is there are ways you can talk to your parents about concerns about their health, and if they use the excuse, I'm getting old, you now know that you can say to them, you don't say to them, but you know in your head, that's an excuse. Age is more about time, and they can drastically change that by eating better, getting better sleep, and moving more.
And if we're thinking about you now, watching us, all the same things apply.
Yes.
Because you can kind of monitor where you're at now and where you want to be in 10, 20, 30 years' time, and God willing, but also having the, information at hand, that is the truth, that is the real information, then you can do something
That's
about
a good point to end on. How you want to function in 10, 15 years' time is a product of what you're doing today.
Oh, that's great, Denise. Thank you. I'm glad we made you laugh.
Yeah.
Go and play with balls, Denise. Go and play with balls with your dog. We actually, do you know what? I have to say, so sometimes at the weekend when we're a bit like, what should we do today? Because obviously, there's not been much to do. What do we do? Fun with balls.
Yes, we do.
We do fun with balls as a family. And we literally, that is exactly how we do it. So Sunday, Monday, what day was it?
I know, it was bank holiday.
We did cricket, hence the reel where we were doing cartwheels. Cartwheels, cricket, throwing, kicking. Running around and having a lark. Right, see you all guys. Lovely to see you.
Take care, see you next week.
Bye-bye, thank you for joining us.
Bye.